Member Middleton.
Good afternoon. Madam Speaker.
May I suggest before we continue in discussion with the government that we suspend the standing orders so as to remove Standing Order 25.9 for the duration of the debate. That's the standing order on looking at your notes as you read.
Yes. Okay. You can see. Okay. So I take it there's agreement by both sides to suspend the standing order. All right. So we shall suspend the standing order for the duration of the sitting. So now we'll have Member Middleton.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Madam Speaker, I rise with immense pride to make my contribution to this debate as I represent the beautiful people of this great and industrious nation, the Republic of Kairi and Shakonia. Madam Speaker, I also want to make it known that I support this bill. But before I get into the details of why this bill is vital, Madam Speaker, I would like to share a brief yet impactful quote from the celebrated Sir Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it is done. With that being said, according to the International Energy Agency, the annual worldwide CO2 emission statistics for 2019 reached a record high of 36.7 billion metric tons. I did my little fact finding and found out that mature elephants can weigh up to a ton, according to National Geographic. So basically, we have 36.7 billion metric tons of mature elephants hovering above us and among us, trapping the sun's heat in our atmosphere. Then we wonder why rivers around the world are breaking their banks. We wonder why food supply disruptions have increased. We wonder why our coral reef systems are becoming bleached. We breathe in these elephants daily and then wonder why so many of us are sick. These dangerously high carbon dioxide levels are degenerating respiratory systems. And then we wonder why the world had a high mortality rate during the COVID-19 pandemic. These elephants are weighing us down and compromising our life expectancy. Every day, these elephants get heavier and heavier, and one day, we won't be able to coexist with these irritants. However, this does not have to be our fate. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic caused global CO2 emissions to plummet 5% to 34.81 billion metric tons. This is because we were forced to be confined to our homes and work remotely, resulting in a dramatic reduction in CO2 emissions as transportation activities such as using ferries to commute from island to island decreased. Unfortunately, it is predicted that the carbon dioxide emissions have rebounded for the years of 2021 and 2022. Right about now, the opposition may be wondering, what does all of these world statistics have to do with the remote work bill? This bill will create an opportunity, a substantial and inordinate opportunity for the Republic of Kairi and Shakonia to become an environmental world leader. This government has already committed to initiatives to reduce CO2 emissions through solar energy grants for businesses, the same businesses that this opposition claims that we do not care about. We're also committed to the carpool tax credit, kitchen garden and composting grants, wastewater management programs, and the construction of a plastic recycling company. up these elements together, and the Republic of Kairi and Shakonia will become an inspiration to other countries, regionally and beyond, to do what we do and walk in our footsteps. Passing this bill will make us an environmental global force. The pessimistic opposition might say that this is unfeasible and impractical. Well, we, the government, say everything seems impossible until it is done. Yeah. And it will be done. It is both our responsibility as the government and the opposition to look out for the best interests of our citizens, as well doing our part to make the world a better place. Unfortunately, it seems as if the opposition has a small-minded approach to this bill. And this is because the opposition is blinded by their strong dislike for our administration, because we are doing what the opposition failed to do when they were in office. Earlier, the Shadow Minister of Digital Transformation, I believe it was Ms. Jamila, mentioned that the government, the new political movement, has been in office for 15 years. This statement simply proves that the opposition is incapable of executing basic responsibility and lack basic understanding of their own party. Then they turn around and accuse us, the government.
Madam Speaker, Standing Order 29-4, a member shall be referred to the House in reference to his or her official portfolio.
Okay. Thank you. Member, just be cognizant of the fact that we are referring to members by their portfolio. Continue.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, I just want to clarify that I did indeed mention that. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Of speaking time.
Sorry?
You have 2 more minutes of speaking time.
Yes. Then they turn around and accuse the government of not being ready to execute the duties that we have put forth, when the opposition, who are sitting in this house, wasn't even ready to make proper debate points. They weren't ready 15 years ago. They weren't ready during their 15 years in office, and yet they are still not ready currently as the opposition. And they sit across there talking about readiness. Is the people of Kairi and Shakonia a joke?
Point of order, Madam Speaker. 29-1. Would the honourable member please elucidate what relevance any of this has to the bill in question?
Overrule the members in her concluding.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With all of that being said, I rest my case. Thank you.
Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for inviting me to join in this debate. Clearly, the member on that side, she said, oh, no, we have to turn up the mics for the member on that side, because the member kept saying that we on the opposition, we are opposed to the bill. But we have been saying from the inception that we are supporting this bill with amendments. So please turn up the mic so that they can hear clearly. I didn't have a dream like Martin Luther King Jr., but I had hope. I had hope when I saw this bill to come today in the Parliament and really congratulate the government for finally doing their job after 3 years in office. My constituents had hope. Madam Speaker, you and all probably had hope. But our hope today was drastically shattered when we came and we saw such a bill like this. A bill that has much potential, but it is fundamentally flawed, and it is literally flawed too. I want to say that, and the member on that side also said that we are pessimistic in the government and we are not relevant now and all these different things, and spoke a lot about elephants. But let me be relevant here and really address the elephants in the room. And let me tell you, the elephants in the room are simply this. The bill is discriminatory to employees, number one. Number two, the bill lacked consultation with the people of Kairi and Shakonia. And number three.
Improper motive that we have not followed proper legislative procedure.
That's a matter of opinion, so that she can elaborate on her points overall.
I see the government is trying to distract me, but it's okay. And the point number three, the provisions are discriminatory against employers. So the Attorney General told us to look at the bill, and that's the only piece of advice I'll take from them now. So I'm looking closely at the bill, Section 9 in particular. And Section 9 says that an employer shall not refuse an application from an employee if that employee is pregnant. Yet, Section 9(3) E says that if this person has instability with connectivity, then their application can be refused. So if somebody is pregnant, yet they have instability in their internet connection, what are we going to do? There is no specific legislation that deals with that. The bill is fundamentally flawed. And of course, in instances like that, pregnant people can now face discrimination because an employer may say, well, I don't want to hire you because you're pregnant. Exactly. Pregnant people may face discrimination. I want to zero in specifically on Clause 9, Section 3, subsection F, that spoke to internet connectivity. I'm not a teacher, but I'm here to educate the government that, quite frankly, we have been having power outages across the 5 island states in the Republic of Kairi and Shakonia. What does that mean? That means that there creates a loophole because, again, an employer can refuse to hire you if you have unstable internet connectivity. So that creates a loophole. An employer can simply say, well, okay, I'm not allowing you to engage in this remote work policy just because you have internet connectivity issues which were formed by which were formed by the power outages that we have been experiencing. And the power outages have not been caused by any of us in Kairi and Shakonia. They have been caused by the government not doing their job because guess what? Guess what? Who is the owner of the power services in this island? Who is the owner of the Electricity Commission in this country that we live in? I think you can answer that. My next point is that there has been lack of consultation with persons in the Republic of Kairi and Shakonia. Let me tell you all something. Well, I don't know if the government really understands that when you are bringing such a bill like that, you have to sit and have proper consultation with the persons that you represent. All the government did was have a poll to say, well, there are mixed reviews on the bill. And if I can be a little facetious and say, the persons who may have said, because there were mixed reviews, meaning that some persons agreed, some persons didn't agree, I can be a little facetious and say the persons who probably didn't agree are the people who may not be computer literate, the persons who cannot afford devices, the persons who may have unstable internet or power. Yet the government clearly has an agenda here today because they still brought the bill despite the mixed reviews of the poll. But let me go a little further and say, polls usually take place around election time. So is the government sending us a hidden message to say that an early election would be called so that we can return to our rightful place on that side of the chamber? I reiterate. All right, so I would wrap up with a quick story, but let me just quickly touch on the employers facing discrimination as well. We see that employers, even the small businessman, I know my colleagues reiterated on that and will continue reiterating, even the small businessman can be criminally liable. What does criminally liable mean? That this person may have to go before the courts if they don't provide services for their employees. We see that in Provision 11. This person can be criminally liable and have to pay $250,000. Doesn't the government know that there's a backlog in cases already? So why would they put such a provision? Interesting. So I conclude with this quick story. So after 10 last night, I saw some members of the government scampering, just scampering around. I don't know. I could be assuming here. Right? They could have been scampering around trying to acknowledge finally that their bill is fundamentally flawed. They may have been trying to figure out a date for this early election. Or maybe, just maybe, they were restless because we know that there is no rest.
Madam Speaker, point of order on relevance and also improper motives. Standing Order 29.2 and 5.
Remember, the member is in her concluding statement, so overruled.
Or maybe, just maybe, they may have been restless because we know there is no rest for those who will be in opposition soon. So I reiterate that this bill is fundamentally flawed because it's discriminatory against employees, employers, and the government failed to consult with the people of Kyrie and Shakonia. And we, as the opposition, we would not stand for that. We support the people of Kyrie and Shakonia who voted for us.
Member Padouche.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The COVID-19 pandemic was a considerable challenge for the global community and for every household in Kyrie and Shakonia. As a result of being forced to rethink a lifestyle we had considered as normal, a silver lining of that the COVID pandemic brought us was normalising flexible working conditions. Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of this bill, which comes at such an opportune and crucial time for our nation. As we build up our new normal, we have a chance here to be bold, to be global leaders, and to be radical in the ways in which we approach social care. Madam Speaker, this bill speaks to the values at the core of the new political movement, building the economy while caring for our people and our communities. These are values shared by the citizens of Kyrie and Shakonia. These are values that the people have entrusted the government to deliver on. After those sitting opposite squandered 15 years in power, not thinking towards the future and not thinking about our people, our communities, or our families. Madam Speaker, yes, this bill is first and foremost concerned with the economy. However, to paint this bill as a purely cold-blooded economic bill that leaves behind our nation's workers indicates a lack of creativity and vision from those opposite. Who says that we can't meld our economic and social care priorities? Economic growth does not need to come at the expense of the people, and in fact, with the passage of this bill, we have a very real chance to change the lives of our citizens for the better, and I find it quite concerning and shameful that those opposite fail to recognise that fact. There are many areas of the economy that this bill will target, providing relief for families and improving socio-economic welfare through the flow-on effects of this bill. Madam Speaker, by allowing citizens on our outer islands the opportunity to work from home, we will allow families to save on transport costs, as well as alleviating some of the demand on our currently overburdened ferry systems, a nice leftover from our last government. Saving on these transport costs will put money directly back into the pockets of families. Additionally, allowing citizens the opportunities to stay and work from our outer islands will reduce the stress in the current housing crisis, giving the housing market on our main islands of Kyrie and Shakonia a chance to stabilise, becoming more affordable and again putting dollars directly back into the pockets of our citizens. Another area of this bill driving the economic prosperity for the citizens of Kyrie and Shakonia will be the introduction of a 4-day work week, an innovative way this government is creating more jobs and increasing the overall productivity of business, as proven by Forbes. With the drop in unemployment that will follow from the implementation of this bill, dollars will again be going directly into the pockets of our citizens, removing the shadow of financial stress from thousands of households across Kyrie and Shakonia as they earn a living wage. Madam Speaker, let me put into perspective what this means for the people. It means that Kira, a recent university graduate from my constituency, will be able to find a job instead of struggling on the job market for months with her full qualifications. And she can now stay on her home island of Poinsettia. It gives Marcus, a labourer from the outer island of Ile-aux-Fleurs who was laid off in the pandemic, a chance to work and put food on the table for his family and presents under the tree at Christmas time. Think about what this means for the people. These are the people that the new political movement strives to take action for. And with the vision of this bill, I have no doubt that we will achieve these outcomes for our people. Financial stress is a burden on too many of our citizens, and this government is committed to acting in the best interests of our people, addressing crucial welfare concerns through these economic reforms. Those opposite have had gripes with the supposed failure of this bill to assist the outer islands, but apparently failed to realise that this bill enables flexible working arrangements for all citizens of Kyrie and Shakonia. Let me give just one example. If workers who stay on the outer islands to live and work, their revenue will flow directly back into those local communities. How is this leaving rural communities behind? But Madam Speaker, the benefits of this bill do not stop there. The direct social and health benefits of remote work and a 4-day work week.
I asked the member to make way for me to make a rebutting remark.
Have we?
No. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is time for our republic to take this step into building the workplaces of tomorrow and that put the health and welfare of our citizens first. The measures in this bill will allow for workers to spend more time doing the things that matter to them, spending time with their family. Rather than being absent at the office all day, for example, working parents will now have the time to pick their kids up from school and spend quality time with them as the time usually spent commuting is freed up. The emotional support provided by close family relationships correlates strongly to better health and social outcomes, a vision that this government strives to achieve for our citizens. Furthermore, enabling the opportunity for remote work is one of the easiest and most direct ways to increase accessibility to the workplace for our vulnerable and disabled citizens without putting their health and safety at risk. As the Society for Human Resource Management highlighted in their 2022 paper, along with cutting out the risk to stressful obstacles that come with commuting to work, the flexibility of remote work and a 4-day work
Remember, you have
week.
2 more minutes of speaking time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The flexibility of remote work and a 4-day work week allows these employees to perform to their highest abilities. This is a future we want to create for our most vulnerable, empowering to live to their fullest potential by removing the structural barriers that have previously existed when accessing work. Furthermore, with this bill, the government is addressing the negative health and mental health concerns of impacts of stress and overworking by allowing people the time off that they so desperately need. In fact, a study conducted by the American Sociological Review highlighted that flexible remote workers tend to have better sleep, feel healthier, and experience less stress. Madam Speaker, this bill gives the people of Kyrie and Shakonia the freedom and agency to take their lives into their own hands, unbind their sense of self-worth and identity from their work, and find a work-life balance that doesn't result in epidemic levels of stress, burnout, depression, and anxiety, which we see in today's workplace. Instead, this government is allowing people to focus on the things that are really important to each and every one of us: our families, our health, our communities, and our interests. Madam Speaker, this bill is economically smart. This bill is a step into the global future. But above all, this bill is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do for the families of our great nation, for those in lower socioeconomic brackets, for the vulnerable and the disabled, for the workers who are burnt out and overly stressed. This bill provides the social care for our people at the same time as delivering on economic outcomes, increasing our great nation's socio-economic welfare. We must not allow the welfare of our people to be turned into a political football. The people are our number one priority in this House, and this government will deliver for the people with this remote workplace bill. Thank you.
Member Bai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. I see that we are having a heated discussion on remote working so far, but I hope to bring everyone's attention to another important part of this bill, 4-day work week. As we all know, so many essential workers who contribute significantly to tourism, to agriculture, who work so hardly in the rural area are excluded from any remote working opportunities. Such opportunities simply don't exist for them. However, some of these important workers may at least benefit from flexing working by applying for a 4-day work week. Speaking of these important workers who are currently underrepresented by this government, I also want to take this opportunity to urgently encourage the government to take more actions to show how they care about our hardworking people in tourism, in agriculture, in those rural areas on the smaller islands. Not a single individual in Kairi and Traconia should be excluded out from the opportunities to improve their own livelihood. And this is always we, the National Labour Party's focus. To maximize the benefit that all citizens can take from the 4-day work week, I now have 2 points to share in this chamber. Firstly, we hope employers and employees can work collaboratively to ensure all the essential services can continue to be accessible in our community. We would like to see the employees can choose to take off 1 extra day that suits for their own needs. It can be on Friday, on Monday, or in the middle of the week. And we also encourage the employers to coordinate the work shifts of all the employees who may apply for working 4 days a week, so that everyone in our community can continue to enjoy the daily service as usual. And I'm happy to say that the Minister of Labour recognized it earlier this morning. Secondly, I suggest that the employees should have the right to maintain their regular weekly working hours. By saying that, the workers will have the right to choose to work a bit longer each day, so that when they work for 4 days per week, to alleviate current transportation issue, they will still be able to afford a decent life. But of course, to extend the working hours per day and reduce the working days, will leave overtime issues for further discussion, especially for those employees who have already working 8 hours per day. And in this case, I suggest that this government should take the responsibility to provide subsidy to those hardworking people who are helping alleviate current transportation issues while maintaining the same productivity for our economy. So this is the time the government should take the responsibility. Again, we, the National Labour Party, we would like to work collaboratively with the government to explore remote working and flexible working opportunities for our people in different industries, in different districts, to improve the livelihood to every single individual in Kairi and Chaconia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Ennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to address any potential concerns regarding Section 14 of today's bill. Ever since Henry Ford's 1914 idea of a 5-day working week became a reality, employers have used the standard 9 to 5, 5 days a week for over 100 years. It is clear to see that the 5-day working week not only has put a stunt in our productivity, but has also seen increased stress levels and more people taking time off work. Madam Speaker, we're currently in a mental health crisis, with this taking a toll on both our economy and our healthcare services. Within the last 5 years, multiple research groups from across the world and friends in the Commonwealth have conducted pilot studies into the 4-day working week. The results of these studies have indicated that not only have these studies had a benefit on people's well-being, but also projects a boost in both the national and local economies. So I'd like to share a couple of these results with my honourable colleagues. Microsoft in Japan saw a 40% increase in productivity. And in the UK, 95% of businesses who took part said that productivity had stayed the same or improved during the shorter week. Employees who chose to adapt a 4-day working week routine will be able to allocate an extra day towards leisure activities, boosting small businesses, which the opposition said that this bill negatively affects. The introduction of this bill will see a decrease in unemployment from 8%, which, may I remind my honourable friends, was at levels such as 30% coming off the back of the opposition's control of the House. Employers will be able to provide more openings, employers will be able to provide more openings depending on how many of their employees decide to take up a 4-day working week, which, may I remind the opposition, is a choice. The opposition expressed concern regarding Clause 9, subsection 3F. I'd like to ask the opposition whether they listened to the Minister for Digital Transformation, who clearly stated that the government is working on grants to provide fibre optic cables to our rural communities. Or were they too busy calling out unsuccessful standing orders? I'm glad that both of our parties have the common goal of passing a bill on remote working and a 4-day week. But how come they had to wait 15 years for our innovation to even propose a bill of this nature? Oh, sorry.
I asked if the honourable member can cede some time so we can explain our use of standing orders.
No?
No?
Bruce, continue.
Sorry. Okay. Let me pick up where I was interrupted. How come we had to wait 15 years for our innovation to even propose a bill of this nature in the first place? May I remind the opposition that the people of Kairi and Chaconia voted for our party because we are the new political movement. Madam Speaker, they may shake their heads, but they wouldn't be if they won the election. We are providing new ideas so that we can become an economic powerhouse, so that we can help our 1 million citizens, so that we can create global citizens. Under the Labour Party, our nation was a sitting duck on the world economic stage. With the passing of this bill, Kairiri and Shikonia will leave our shallow pond and take flight towards becoming a world economic leader. Madam Speaker, it's clear to see that we are the party of economic growth, we are the party of the people, and they are the party of unemployment and anti-growth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My honourable colleagues. I wonder if the government can speak to the effects of a 4-day work week on the most important sectors in our nation, our essential services. The Minister for Digital Transformation today mentions essential services as an exception to this bill. I'll take you back to Parliament yesterday, where the Minister for Public Administration is on record saying that healthcare workers will get a day to rest. So which is it? I'm not entirely sure the government knows. How can the public trust a government if they're talking about two contradictory points? I'll address additionally the Minister for Labour, who seems confused on what 4 days really mean. We are not supposing that hospitals close Friday through Sunday. What this bill means is nurses and doctors will be working less days than their usual shifts, creating mass staffing shortages. You might not be refused entry to a hospital, Minister, but you might wait hours in the waiting room. Those sitting opposite would have your children go untaught, they would have you wait months for doctor's appointments, and they would have you left untreated in hospital as nurse-to-patient ratios plummet. Clause 15, subsection 1D provides a reduction in productivity as a cause for refusal when applying for a 4-day work week. Just how does the government plan on defining productivity? If allowing nurses, doctors and pharmacists to stay home and rejuvenate, as my honourable colleague, the Minister for Public Administration said, isn't the very model of unproductivity, then what is? Who can employers refuse? The government has not clarified. They're all slogans and no substance. This bill is nothing more than cheap political point scoring. It's undeniably clear that the government has resorted to political grandstanding to claw back the votes of essential service workers they lost in dismantling our healthcare and education systems, handing it over to private insurance, the rich and wealthy. This is a government that has seen the price of healthcare and further education increase year after year. It is a rort. We remain the party of education, of healthcare and of essential service. The honourable members before me may have forgotten, so I'll remind them, essential services are essential. You can't staff an emergency ward or an ICU when you have half your workers off on any given day, as this bill would have it. You can't meet the required curriculum standards for a high school or university in 4 days instead of 5. I ask the government what their plan is, because it seems they don't have one. Will our healthcare workers, our teachers be subjected to long working days to make up for lost time, exacerbating an already burnt out workforce? A well-deserved reward for being on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, this government must think. It is clear this government advocates only for the metropolitan elite and has completely forgotten the workers and service providers that let this nation function. I ask those opposite, have you considered the hardworking men, and especially the hardworking women, who make up the backbone of our nation's essential services? The provision of this bill would see healthcare workers, teachers, child carers, among many others, in less secure work, deepening gender inequality and limiting social mobility as a result. Let me be clear, this government is one that not only allows inequality, it endorses it. This government would have us regress on our commitments to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. A convention that, let me remind the government, we supported and support still. Where is the consultation? Where is the dialogue? As far as I can see, there's been none. The government has come to Parliament with an unfinished, unconsulted bill that raises far, far more issues than it solves. Madam Speaker, we support this idea in principle. We support a sector-based approach to a 4-day work week within the scope conditions of our amendments. This government has not served a term and has already laid the groundwork to cripple our healthcare and education systems and place thousands of people in insecure employment. all to appease their voters on the islands of Kairi and Shikonia. Those already wealthy enough to afford private insurance, to afford further education. It is clear that this is not the party of the nurse, the teacher, and the child carer. The National Labour Party remains the party for workers, for essential services. We will not exploit them and their work for cheap political points. The government will not even support their own bill in this current stage. How are we expected to back a half-baked, unacceptable and unsupportable bill? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Ahmad Kawazi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me start with one quote says, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." The developments of education world is the same important as the welfare of teachers and also the continuity of the education's quality of among the students. The remote work bill that was presented by the minister in this house yesterday was seen to have a high appeal, especially for teachers. Referring to section 14.1 of the bill, an employee may apply to work for 4 days of the week. It seems to open a good offer to the teachers. The current situation's challenges definitely affecting the workload of teachers, which I have experienced it before as an educator. Therefore, I see this as one of the perks offered by this government to all of the teachers, as well as for the teachers' recruitment and retention in the organization, which sadly never be done by the previous government. And this is why the people of this country choose and stand with new political movement. Madam Speaker, contradicts to what the opposition's member has mentioned earlier this morning and mislead this House by saying that there is a fall of our education quality during the pandemic. Let me remind you, my dear opposition members, the Kairi and Shikonia adult literacy percentage in this year, 2022, greatly reaches 99.5%. And I repeat, 99.5%. Indeed, the opposition are the one who never prepared and ready to do the reforms and accept the transformation, as this is the real aspirations of what the people of this beloved country wants. And we are the people of this, and we are the one who stand together with the aspirations of our people and not stuck at the past anymore. Madam Speaker, the 99.5% also certainly shows how committed the teachers are to their duties. So I believe this bill can provide additional motivations to the teachers who have worked hard all this time, because they would have a long rest day to spend with their families. And this shows that this government is so concerned, appreciates and look after the welfare of the teachers compared to the other side of this house. Madam Speaker, furthermore, the research done by Gender Pay Gaps shows that roughly 2 million British people are not currently in employment due to childcare responsibilities, and 99% of these people are women. With this work bill, it is also directly give a fully support to the women empowerment and family institution generally. So a 4-day work week would promote an equal workplace, as a teacher would be able to spend more time with their families and offering a better care and work commitments. Madam Speaker, apart from that, the problem of teacher shortage can also be overcome with this kind of attractions, and we can directly ease the burden on teachers in schools and guarantee work-life balance. This also helps to increase employee satisfaction, organizational commitment, and teamwork, but is to decrease stress level. The study done by New Zealand-based organization shows the stress level decrease of 45% to 38%. these results of the study are not surprising given that some of the other world's most productive countries like Norway, Denmark, Germany, and Netherlands also have an average 27 hours work a week. Even better, reducing employees' work schedule does not harm their productivity and the output quality, which I have a strong belief in all of our teachers that they will definitely continue their best for all of their students. Madam Speaker, a poll done in the UK by Thomson Reuters Foundation News shown that 61% of the teachers believe a 4-day work week will improve their teaching, and 69% thought that a shorter week would make them more likely to stay in this profession. Which this will ensure the teacher profession will in a good and stable stage for the future of all our children here. Madam Speaker, I also would like to touch base on the students' view a bit. They would feel this 4-day school a week provides an opportunity for extra rest and less stressful environment and allows them to relax and be more productive, such as engaging in volunteer and enrichment activities or pursuing additional educational goals. So that by having a good long life learning process, their academic achievement will improve positively and reduce discipline referral frequency as well. For university students, they can make the rest day of usefulness by doing any part-time jobs and earn extra money for supports their needs and as well as giving them...
You have 2 more minutes speaking time.
Thank you, Madam. And giving them good working experience in their resume. Madam Speaker, hold on. We are care for our people, hence we fast-tracked the transformation of ICT services 2 years ago, which stabilized our economy and did not crumble it. Are we saying this not caring for our citizens, honorable members of the opposition? I'm asking again, are we saying this is not caring for our citizen, honorable members of the opposition? We care for our people because we are extending the current...
Speaker, the honourable member asked a question. I'd like for him to cede us some time so we can explain his question.
Are you willing to give way?
No.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We care for our people because we are extending the current digitalization process to ensure all citizens are able to access ICT services. Honourable Speaker, I think the honourable member are confused of the country economy and needs to revisit the jurisdiction again. And lastly, Madam Speaker, the 4-day work week is doable and helps both teachers and students to improve their quality of life, and I definitely believe we will giving our very best for the people of the Republic, and I hereby end my speech by support to pass this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Harris.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Discrimination is defined as the unjust or damaging treatment of different categories of people. I am a part of the Republic of Kyrie and Chaconia. So is everybody sat here today. I find it truly sad and defeating that our current government does not care about the people within agriculture. We are all important members of our society, and my esteemed colleagues have already touched on so many points that help to provide the information needed to make informed decisions. Our small archipelago is home to 1 million people. That is extraordinary. I feel as though the government forgets that we're all people and not statistics. We face hard times ahead. Care and consideration is profoundly needed. Robert Bob Cockwell is a coconut farmer in central Poinsettia. his family have worked themselves to the bone, it is increasingly saddening that his painstaking work is being neglected. In Clause 6, an employee may apply to his employer for a variation of his terms and conditions of employment in relation to A, where he is required to work. Madam Speaker, how do you think Bob's workers are going to farm for coconuts from their homes? A 4-day work week would only suit some and not all. This is not just about Bob, it's about all of our community. If Bob were to enforce a 4-day work week, he would need more staff to obtain a continuous rota. Agriculture is not a 9-to-5 job, and I repeat, it is not a 9-to-5 job. Employing more staff could leave his business in shambles. Most businesses in his industry are family-run. He is left with very little choice. Our current government invests heavily in the tourism industry. It is brilliant for those it helps support. But what about those in agriculture? What about them? The people who work diligently with no reward. Not all people are interested in STEM-orientated subjects to improve the tourism industry. Agriculture will always be prominent in the Republic of Cairo and Trichonia. Oil and gas is temporary. Agriculture should be side by side with tourism, instead of being drowned out and forgotten about. The government obviously has no care when it comes to our environment. Bob's plantation contains about 75 trees per acre. These trees efficiently absorb CO2 when properly cared for and replaced on time. You want a 4-day work week, which could awfully lower production and replacement of palms? Think about how many coconut plantations and other plantations such as cocoa, coffee, and sugarcane there are. Think about how many will stay afloat if this bill is enacted. You aren't just dooming those within agriculture, but the islands you call home. It is not difficult to support all of your society. This bill shows no protection or serious investment, with the purpose of this bill being promoting the welfare of employees and creating enabling and inclusive workplace environments. I find myself wondering if the government has any idea of what's happening outside the main islands. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member Eldridge.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to commend this bill and to clarify a few points. Specifically, I want to start by clearing something up with the opposition in relation to a persistent theme in their speeches concerning how perfect a bill must be before it is tabled to Parliament. I'd like to note that the government does not make legislation. Parliament does. It is intended for issues to be identified, discussed and amended in this forum. It would be the height of arrogance for the opposition to assume that the government must present a 100% watertight bill with no flaws, no ambiguity, satisfies all stakeholders perfectly and addresses every single possible concern under the sun. If that were the standard, Madam Speaker, of drafting, not a single bill would ever reach this chamber for debate. But on to my substantive points. The opposition has previously claimed that remote work will cost employers, specifically regarding providing employees with remote work technology as per Clause 11, subsection 2. While a plain reading of this bill might give this impression, the opposition hasn't understood that bills do not exist in a vacuum. They exist amongst other laws and conventions. Certain things make sense in context. There are many things that can be deducted from a business or business owner's tax claims. Many of the expenses incurred by employers for technological costs are one-off equipment and installation costs to comply with the legislation. Many of these costs can be claimed as tax deductible. Now, Madam Speaker, if businesses can claim office birthday cakes as legitimate business expenses, surely a small business can write off a couple of laptops and a modem as a business expense. I'm not saying that every single expense is tax deductible, by no means, but many will be. Most employees will be able to break even with this, and this government will ensure that we do all we can to protect our nation's small and medium-sized businesses, the backbone of this nation's economy. Now, the opposition may still be unconvinced. They may say, well, why should we care if most employees can just break even? Well, some of these employees won't just break even, they'll be able to turn a profit. Because if lots of staff went remote, the employer will not have to pay for as much in utilities, office supplies, car parking, office snacks if they provide them, and more. They could use the saved money to hire more staff to grow their business. They could increase their profit margin. They could lease out or sell their buildings if they had significant reduction in employees working there. We in the government understand that a healthy economy does not pit worker against boss. This is not a Robin Hood, rob the employer to pay the employee bill. This is a bill that brings people together in an equal partnership. Now, on to a question of privacy. The opposition has seemingly also failed to understand Clause 11, Subclause 1. This clause notes that an employer is responsible for employees' safety and must conduct a risk assessment of proposed places of work. The opposition appears to be of the belief that this will somehow mean that every house will be raided by a SWAT team of employees, health safety documents in hand, to rummage through their sock drawers. This is not the case. This clause simply requests employers to gather information about the suitability of a workplace, including deficiencies and risks. They can get most of this information from asking the employee. I draw members' attention to Clause 12, Subclause 2, where the employee must comply with policies set by the employer. These policies could include legitimate grounds to reject or discontinue remote work, such as lack of privacy of information, lack of internet connectivity, lack of privacy of and more. To put it simply, this is a safeguard to ensure that employees retain discretion as to how their employees conduct themselves. It does not mean a search warrant will be given to employees. If an employer, after asking all the necessary questions, is still unsatisfied about a worker's capacity to perform remote work safely and efficiently, they will simply reject the request for remote work. After all of this, if an employee is still unsatisfied that an employer has nothing better to do with their lives than open their pantry shelves, they need not apply for remote work either. Because an employer cannot force an employee to work remotely. Things will simply remain the same. No harm, no foul. But if I may crave Madam Speaker's indulgence for one point, on a point of indulgence, I do think the Shadow Minister for Public Administration and the Opposition Chief Whip might need some napkins or tissues brought over to them, because they're practically salivating over all of the points of order that they've raised so far.
Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for inviting me to speak today. I'd just first of all like to clear up that the cost of a birthday cake is very incomparable to the price of a MacBook Pro. So I think your argument there was slightly invalid. And before I spend some time talking about my intended speech, I would like to address something that the honourable members on the other bench have brought up, which is environmental responsibilities that our government have. But I do not believe that this government actually considered those environmental responsibilities when they proposed this bill, because they have contradicted their own members today who have talked about their goals in increasing the oil and gas extractions as an economic industry, which directly contrasts and is the opposite of taking environmental responsibility. Madam Speaker, tourism is the backbone of our economy and what our country is known for. Tourism is the practice of attracting and accommodating and entertaining tourists. However, I'm unsure how one in a tourism industry can interact with a customer when they are working from home. You cannot You cannot remote work drive someone to the airport. You cannot remote work serve food via the internet or change a duvet cover on your laptop at home. In this bill, this government ignores the 50% of its population who work in tourism, the very sector which props up our economy, and this bill fails to realise that those jobs cannot be worked from home. Clause 9.3a will see all employees in the tourism sector, as well as those in the agricultural sector too, as mentioned by my colleagues, getting their remote work requests denied anyway, because it is impossible to work those roles I mentioned before at a remote workplace. This government is complacent with destroying the tourism industry, and this bill is the final nail in that coffin. Madam Speaker, this government proposes this bill to serve the aims of those citizens on the larger islands who are not necessarily using those ferry systems to commute to work in the first place. People on the smaller, rural islands who work jobs within the tourism industry, where it is impossible to conduct the majority of that work from home, will still therefore need to travel to get to their work, which means that the problem of alleviating the pressures on the ferry system will not be alleviated at all. And this is a very problem this government is trying to fix with this bill. I reiterate, my party supports the policy of remote work, but we cannot support this bill, which only seeks to benefit certain industries and certain individuals, ignoring the rest of our nation. This government, in this bill, serves then to develop the other industries at the detriment to the tourism industry and the environment. And one of those industries is the extraction of natural gas and oil, the industry which our government bases their whole idea of foreign relations upon. However, the majority of foreign direct investment that our island actually receives goes to the tourism industry. Personally, I'm not quite sure how those foreign relations will be maintained when the white sandy beaches and tropical rainforests, which attracted that investment in the first place, is destroyed by the destructive oil and gas industry, which the government wants to diversify our economy with. Under Clause 9E3, employers are going to have to reject employee requests to work from home anyway, because the toxic chemicals, the radioactive materials, the hydrocarbons being pumped out into the air from the oil extraction sites outside their work from home window makes the home unsuitable workplace regarding health and safety. Additionally, making employees liable for the impacts that the pollution from these devastating extraction processes have on the employees' homes and makes the employer responsible for the health and safety under Clause 11.1, which is frankly absurd. A responsibility that our government should be taking on, not offloading the effort to the already constrained employer under your current bill. No employer should be responsible for the risks that occur inside an employer's home if they are working remotely, especially not when their own government is willing to increase those risks by sacrificing our natural environment in the name of profit. Anyway, why would we invest in favour of oil and natural gas extraction over our largest employing sector of the work economy, which is tourism, when this Parliament, as mentioned before, has already committed itself to reducing our carbon footprint via renewable energy initiatives? The increased risk of development of offshore oil and natural gas reserves are insurmountable, and indisputable pollution that these extraction efforts will cause to our island waters significantly impacts another one of our key natural resources of fish, which fishing, funnily enough, is another job that cannot be worked from home. I have a pencil here, and it reads, an ostentation of peacocks. And that is exactly how I would describe the members sat on the other side of this bench. Peacocks parading their narrow...
Member, sorry, you have 2 more minutes of speaking time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Peacocks parading round their narrow-minded focuses on parts of the economy
Okay. Member, I believe the member is going to make an analogy, so I wouldn't really deem that insulting, so overruled.
Peacocks who parade around their narrow-minded focus on parts of the economy which benefit the middle class and wealthy citizens of this island, neglecting to consider the health and environmental responsibility that they as a government ignore with the environmental protection initiatives that we have committed to. So, strut around your pretty coloured bill, because we, the National Labour Party, will not ignore the shallowness behind your fancy words. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member Young.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to speak on this debate. And for your indulgence, or asking for indulgence, I'd like to just first off say to thank the constituents of my riding for electing me and to this wonderful House to be able to debate, to be able to make this bill, to be able to say that this is something that is necessary for our great republic. And as someone who is recently here to this republic, I can very much say that I'm very thankful for the great hospitality they have extended to me as a newcomer to this place and electing me to this place. So thank you for the indulgence to thank my constituents. I am a servant of them. So I will now begin my debate. I would just like to first touch on a little bit about this act and education. Kyrie and Shikonia have education rates of 99.5%, a literacy rate of 99.5%. That is only achievable because of the wonderful work that the educators of our country help with and help our population get to. And I just wanted to give them a round of applause so that we show that our appreciation to them, and especially during the very difficult times of COVID-19, they didn't have the opportunity to be in person to teach the students. Educators are the noble profession, as stated by Aristotle. And I hope that we can really express our gratitude to educators from all across our small republic, in remote, in urban. They are the backbones of our country. I do find it very strange that the opposition can tell us on government, or tell the public that, this bill is going to be a blanket on everyone in every place, every corner of this republic. And it isn't. The legislation is very, very clear. An employer can say, and if the opposition want to scoff at it, of course they can scoff at it because they haven't read the bill. The bill is very important. It clearly says that an employer may. So if an employee wants to, they can apply. An employer may consider it. It's not a must. Doesn't mean that a farmhand has to go to remote if he does not want to do that. It does not mean that the owner of the farm has to make everyone do a 4-day work week. That's not the case. The case is we are allowing the stepping stone for our economy to get to a point where, if everyone wants a 4-day work week, we can offer that. We are here to support them, not to be the authoritarian backhand telling them, you must do this to be a part of our society. That is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. So I refute 100% and very strongly the motives or the ideas that the opposition is saying that this government is trying to ram down a 4-day work week to all of the population. So that is absolutely 100% not what we are doing. Educate.
Point of information. I asked that the member give way.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking a little bit more about the education sector, again, educators can and have shown during the pandemic their resiliency. They are able to do things with online learning. They have been. Some have not. And we're working as a government to ensure that every corner of this country, of this beautiful republic, is able to do that by having more ICTs, by adding more funding to ensure that connectivity is widespread, that power is not going to be unreliable. What did the opposition do when they were in government for 15 years? Let's go and take a look. Did they help with the ferry services in the 15 years? No. Did they go and improve ICTs throughout our beautiful republic? No. Did they go and diversify the economy when they knew that there was going to be not just tourism, that there were gas reserves around this country? No. So it's 3 no's, Madam Speaker. If I were an educator, I'd be giving this opposition party an F. Perhaps even getting them to redo a grade. So I would just like to say that the opposition can lecture all us they want on this bill. This bill has shortfalls, and I want to acknowledge that, and the Attorney General has acknowledged that. But we are here in a parliament to talk. The word parliament comes from the French parler, which means to talk. We have to talk together to make this bill better. The opposition can do all the tricks and they want to standing orders, points of orders. They can be wishy-washy about how they say they think this bill is great, but then they bash the bill and say this is absolute garbage. You know, they're always going back and forth to say this is wrong, this is right, this isn't good, this needs to be done. What do you want? What does the opposition want? Make up your mind. Make up your mind. You know, they say that we have...
I asked the member to give way to answer his question. You ask questions.
Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And they say they are the party of the blue collars. Well, from listening to the debate, it doesn't seem they are the party of the blue collars. They want to help the employers more than the employees. I thought they were the Labour Party, and we were the ones that helped those. So how is Labour going to help them?
Member, you have 2 more minutes of speaking time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will now end my speech to say that this party is the party of innovation. It is the party of global leaders. We are making the stepping stone to become a global leader with this remote bill. And we want to tie taking care of our citizens and economic growth hand in hand to make a new political movement.
Member Greentree.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, thank you for recognizing me. This bill, in its current form, is detrimental for small businesses and medium-sized enterprises. It clearly shows this government has no regard for anyone but themselves. I would like to bring to your attention Clause 8, subsection 2D. It is absurd for a small business to be able to absorb the cost of remote work equipment when it's the employee's choice to remove themselves from a fully functioning, fully equipped office. In the ever-developing world of technology we live in, it does not come cheap. So how can we expect small businesses to splash out unnecessary cash when this money could be utilized elsewhere, such as recuperating the cash lost as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? Is this government willing to subsidize these costs to help support these small businesses who are now trying to re-establish the tourism industry and support the economy, or at least offer a tax reduction on these items? It is truly puzzling that this government thinks it is acceptable and fair, when in fact it is the complete opposite. This heavily costing setup of equipment, installation, and reoccurring service costs will combine to jeopardize small business owners. Is this really what we want? So, Madam Speaker, the government is truly out to terminate small businesses and entrepreneurs. It is clearly shown in Clause 11, subsection 4. An employee who breaches this section of the Act commits an offence and is liable to a fine of $250,000. $250,000! This preposterous fine is ludicrous. How can this be allowed? It is clearly daylight robbery. This indecisive decision made by the government can ruin livelihoods and put families into disregard. It clearly states that anyone who breaches this clause commits an offence. Does this government think it is acceptable to give innocent business owners criminal records and ruin their futures due to an incompetent government decision that was made without regard for the people of this country? This government states that they are for the people. Well, where is the action to support this? This government is clearly all bark and no bite. I end by enlightening this House on the situation of a small business from my constituency, a small local tour service who is now slowly starting to recover from the pandemic. How can they afford to let their staff who can work from home when they can just about afford to pay their salaries? This is an unreasonable request which imposes more issues than solutions in this unprecedented situation. Thank you.
Member Moala.
Madam Speaker, I am so afraid of how confident and very passionate the opposition is in misleading the people of Kairi and Chinokia of their assumptions of the bill. In the light of these immense discussions towards the bill that has been put forth for the betterment of the Republic of Kairi and Chinoria, Chaconia, I am thankful for the government for such initiative to move forward and pave a way for issues that should have been addressed long ago. I would like to move forward to the objectives of this bill with an environmental approach that may direct the opposition party to understand one of the factors that lies within the bill. This is also promising to fight for climate change in order to protect the environment in the precious land of Kairi and Chaconia. As we have measures in place avoiding extractions of oil, and this is all in the jurisdiction documents. Madam Speaker, there is a great deal of implementation with remote workplace, and may I say that the opposition party failed to recognize is the transparency of the bill to commit to reducing its carbon footprint, in which members of the government has pointed out in various ways. In such, the urban planning may take place as decentralization of services to remote islands once this remote workplace bill takes place. A significant financial resources are needed to adapt to the adverse effects and reduce the impacts of changing climate. Remote workplace is needed for mitigation because large-scale investments are required significantly to reduce emissions. However, the remote workplace bill could also help disseminate of services to the rural areas in terms of equal adaptation. This can lessen the need to travel to and from, and not only it is costly, but it is also contributing to the global emission. On the other hand, the Paris Agreement sees through the scope of fully realizing technical development and transfer for both in improving resilience to climate change and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, in which the Honourable Minister for ICT has talked about the strategic ways for remote working. This could also establish a technology framework to provide a predominant guidance to the well-functioning technology mechanism. The mechanism is accelerating technology development and transfer through its policy and implementation arms. In conjunction to COP27 that recently took place it promotes climate technology solutions in developing countries. COP27 significantly advanced the work on mitigation. A mitigation work program, which also launched, aimed at urgently scaling up mitigation ambitions and implementations. Moving to a remote work model can also result in several positive side effects, not just a reduction in fossil fuel consumption, but also less traffic using of ferries. Let's take a look at the past obvious immediate outcomes and dive into the secondary and long-term potential benefits of this bill. It is inconsiderate people like you who only cares about the most irrelevant context and overlooks what the possible changes the bill can do to our environment. Your decision-making leads to the enormous effects of climate change. Bear with me, Madam Chair. In such decisions, Madam Speaker, and members of Parliament of the Republic of Kyrie and Chiconia, I want to reference to the Kingdom of Tonga and the Pacific Island nations who are prone and stands vulnerable to climate change. And as a
Madam Speaker,
representative,
we ask that you extend the time of the honourable member.
Proceed.
and as a representative of the Kingdom of Tonga and Pacific Island nations, to the 11th
Member.
Commonwealth Youth Parliament.
Member, could you just, okay. We're going to suspend the House for 5 minutes, and then we'll proceed with Member Mwala when we return. So we're suspended for 5 minutes. Member Moala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I was saying, I want to reference the Kingdom of Tonga and the Pacific Island nations, who are prone and stands vulnerable to climate change. And as the only Pacific representative here, I blurt my plea, to all leaders who are here with us or joining us virtually. On behalf of all island nations from the Pacific, who is only responsible for 0.3%, but the most vulnerable to climate change and global warming, natural disasters. Here is my voice, and let it echo. We are suffering, we are sinking, we are sinking. The land that my future lies on is sinking. I would not live my life to see our beautiful islands being lost to the sea. Within these islands lies our future, and I won't rest my case, but I will continue to use any platforms and any opportunity to let my voice be heard. And as said yesterday, let youth speak. Youth are the future. Future is today. Youth to be agents of change. Go brave and so forth. To all leaders listening in, be mindful of all decision making. Always put in mind the small island nations who is suffering the enormous consequences of climate change. Our choices today determines the outcome of tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Member yeah?
The government party, I thank to the opposition for giving time to the House.
Member Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the chance to speak. Before we get round to discussing the bill, I'd like to take a moment to say that we, the opposition, really appreciate your passion, Member Moala. Now, back to the actual bill itself, the thing that we are here to discuss today. The rest of you, government, are living in fantasy land. You are talking about hypothetical, metaphorical things. These are of no use to us. We're discussing fibre optic broadband, but without fibre optic broadband, we have nothing. This is subjective. There are so many holes in it that everybody reads it differently. You've given us a draft, that is not worthy of being called a draft. These are rough notes. Now, personally, the thing that hit me, because obviously my colleagues have all raised a lot of issues, and there are many of them, and not enough time in a day to discuss them. But the one that hit me the most is that you're taking away the right of an employer to a workspace or a healthy work environment. You have mentioned about 6 times about mental health and how working from home is so beneficial. Have you forgotten about the pandemic? How everybody was so isolated and raring to get back into the office? You are going to turn working into working alone, turning everyone into robots. Stand up. I know that it will be a choice, but at a certain point, you are not giving the employers the right to stop anybody from working from home. Therefore, there won't be an office or a workspace to get to. Now, this is under section 9 and 10, in case you want to bring me up, because we over here are talking about the bill, not about the concept, not about the policy, because we have said that we support it. But this bill is damaging and short-sighted, as it is. Now, I'd like to talk about young people, because this affects young people the most, I think. Because if you're taking away the workplace, you are taking away the right to network. You're creating a who knows who, it's not what you know, it's who you know, situation in the workplace. I was talking to Joe from my constituency, and he said that he started a new job during the pandemic, and he found it really hard to engage in it because he was not able to see people and speak to them in person. He had to do it all online. If workplaces move online, you are losing these valuable opportunities to network and work in person. Now, we had been in power for 15 years, and we worked so hard to get women a seat at the table. And what have you gone and done? Took the table away. This, in the way it is now, is damaging. And I really, really hope that the government listen to us, because we are helping you with amendments, but you keep shooting us down saying, oh, we've thought of this. Oh, but we've said this. You've said it in your head. You haven't told us. You've given us this daft draft that we can do nothing about. Now, I think I've covered what I need to say, but I will end by saying employers should have the right to protect their workplace environment. This bill, as it is harmful and short-sighted. For once, oh dear government, do the right thing and fix this bill. Help the people, let the employers protect their workplace. Thank you very much.
Member Bahaman Wastavino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Firstly, I'd like to give my respect to Honourable Member Tina. Your words absolutely moved me, and I'm sure they absolutely moved the rest of the Parliament. So I'd like to discuss the topic of defence for the bill. Armed defence in any nation is one of the key aspects to bringing the nation of Kyrie and Chaconia so it can be a leading nation in the world. I'm sure even the opposition would agree there that having a full armed force protects the people and brings the... we are not defenseless from foreign threats, if that makes sense. And I'd like to make it clear on behalf of the government that the bill will not in any way affect the efficiency of armed forces, because under clause 9, section 3A, the employee's job duties cannot be performed at a remote workplace. This applies greatly towards essential work, as the opposition have said themselves, that essential work is essential. So therefore, That means that we will not be seeing soldiers doing push-ups in their own living rooms. I also like to mention the topic of cybersecurity, which I'm sure the opposition are very concerned about with their efficiency on the bill. This counts the same towards like armed forces. They will not, the efficiency of the cybersecurity will not be affected in the same way, because cybersecurity, as the opposition and the government say, is essential work, and it is essential. Therefore, we will not be sending drone strikes or taking down criminal organizations online on the toilet. Terrible joke, yes. And the focus of the government is to bring on the armed force and the cybersecurity to their commitment to bring both of these aspects to a suitable standard so that the country of Kyrie and Chaconia can be a world leader, a leading nation in the world. And that is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Member Avila.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to contribute as a representative for the people of the Republic of Kyrie and Chaconia and as an opposition member. As the bill that we are debating requires reference to technical matters at this time, I humbly beg your indulgence in referring to my prepared written notes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the bill presented to us today seeks to provide for the establishment of a framework for remote workplaces and the reduction of the working week, to 4 days for employees on the contract and employers in the civil. May I rephrase that? Of the working week to 4 days for employers on the contract and employees in the civil service. Madam Speaker, before I proceed in discussing the merits or lack thereof of this bill, please allow me, Madam Speaker, to highlight a few relevant facts. Firstly, and very importantly, Madam Speaker, polling shows that one of the challenges faced by the population regarding working from home is that internet penetration is low on smaller islands. And where internet connectivity exists, the service is often unstable. Additionally, all 5 islands experience frequent disruptions in power supply. Given these circumstances, it is a recipe for economic disaster. For our labor force to be allowed to work remotely and on a shortened work week. Let us examine a few of these details a little more. Madam Speaker, first, working remotely requires stable internet and stable power supply. Wouldn't it be more practical and feasible for the government to address these problems, firstly, before seeking to bring a law into effect where unreliable infrastructure exists? In my view, Madam Speaker, that is like putting the proverbial cart before the horse instead of the other way around. Second, while the second largest islands have seen significant economic growth, the smaller islands have not seen the same level of growth. A main part of the reason is because the poor infrastructure is seen in the same. My apologies. Thank you. A main part of the reason is because of the poor infrastructure in the smaller islands. Shouldn't this be another good reason to seek developments and on the other islands before pursuing a course of failure cloaked as remote working? Third, As for a shortened work week, Madam Speaker, that is an ill-conceived idea at this time. We are just coming out of a pandemic. Arguably, productivity has been low over the past year and a half. It is time to increase productivity to pre-pandemic levels. Cutting the work week will result in the contrary. Secondly, Madam Speaker, tourism currently accounts for 70% of the GDP and employs approximately 50% of the population. Tourism is a part of the service sector that provides physical services around the clock. Remote work and shortened work week will not allow the tourism sector to be efficient. With a shortened work week or remote work, who will be available to provide concierge, dining, laundry, and tour services to the tourism sector? As it relates to the bill, Madam Speaker, the following are not given due consideration. First, the negotiation between the employer and employee for the reimbursement for the cost of internet and the use of equipment may be disadvantageous to the employees since employers will generally have more resources at their disposal to develop agreements in their favor. Second, likewise, there can be a significant time lag between the employee making a complaint to the Commission and the Commission making a final decision. The old maximum of justice is delayed is justice denied. Will be the sentiments and realities of employees. Third, reducing working hours would mean less pay. We must remember that these workers are the drivers of economic stability within the economy. If they don't have an abundance in the primary income, then there's an increased chance in the unavailability of being able to adequately invest in the country's tourism industry. Moreover, our workers won't be able to source themselves economically, which will make it stressful for them to carry out basic day-to-day activities of their personal livelihoods within this fast-paced global system. It is not sustainable. Finally, Madam Speaker, do you think the government really care about this bill and the people of the Republic of Korea and Shakonia? It is my view that this bill that seeks to reduce the working week or enable remote working is only a ploy to seek the popularity of this government. If the government is serious about our people and development, they should pursue the courses of action that will bring about that development across the board of our small country. Thank you.
Member Caputo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on behalf of the great people of Kaira and Shakonia. The economy of the Republic of Kaira and Shakonia has increasingly grown over the years, with the GDP growing from 5% to 70% since diversification of tourism. With the current bill that we seek to move, our economy is expected to grow immensely. Remote working provides for growth in the digital economy, which will eventually propel the country's economic growth, becoming a significant source of economic development and job creation, which will spill over to almost every sector of the economy. The Republic of Kaira and Shakonia seeks to build a digital space, workforce, and to capitalize on emerging opportunities in high-growth sectors and create more jobs for the youth in both the public and the private sectors. Employees shall have more disposable income due to savings on commuting and other expenditure related to going to the workplaces when they adopt the remote working bill. The cost of renting office space has increased over the years and is a barrier to the growing of startups and small corporations. As a government, we seek to reduce this financial pressure for most companies by passing this important bill on remote working. The 4-day working enables employers to save on overhead costs, focusing more on income-generating activities and improvement of the economy. Our citizens shall be more productive, with significant reduction in the time and number of meetings and encouragement of use of online platforms and collaborations. Madam Speaker, the Labour Party should actually be supportive of this bill if they have the interests of the people of Kaira and Shakonia at heart. Our citizens are encouraged to volunteer, to learn, and to train on the areas of specialization or explore on other areas of the economy, especially on climate change, as my colleague has mentioned, initiatives on the oil and natural gas reserves exploration, agriculture, and medical tourism. Madam Speaker, as a government, we are taking necessary measures to attract investors to our country through the public-private partnerships and private and foreign direct investments. And we hope to be ranked among the top countries for the ease of doing business by the World Bank. Through the investors, we not only dwell in tourism, as had been mentioned by one of the opposition members, but we are also going to dwell in broadband infrastructure, building network capacity, and expanding our network coverage across all the islands. The government of Kaira and Shakonia work on growth of global digital economy with strong digital foundations. We shall have regulations together with our AG on policy guidelines designed to support the digital transformations. As mentioned by my colleague Mwala, we are already seeing the economic impacts of climate change. The process of climate change is said to have a significant economic impact on many countries, including Kaira and Shakonia. With a large number of low-income countries being particularly at risk, use of renewable energies and reduction of carbon emissions, recycling of materials is among the agenda of the government of Kaira and Shakonia. Just to mention to our opposition, the economic stability of our country allows people the ability to access resources to essentials to life, including financial resources, quality housing and food, and a job that provides a stable living wage. They failed to stabilize the economy for the previous period that they were there, but we shall use the quarter of the period in government to serve the people of China and Shakonia. To finalize, Madam Speaker, leadership is a privilege to better the lives of people. And there is no better way to better the lives of the people of Kaira and Shakonia other than passing this bill. Thank you.
Member Sharma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. Reasons why I feel that this particular work from home model will collapse. Firstly, lack of proper infrastructure at home. This is the biggest reason why work from home model will fail. First of all, each home do not have a dedicated calm space set aside for office work. You may hear the crying child, high TV volume, vendors selling on the streets, dogs barking. Well, you hear the dogs barking everywhere in the world, not just in India. To complement these issues, I have heard many employees giving excuses like, sorry, I had a power cut, or sorry, my internet connection went off, or sorry, my laptop crashed. There are many instances where employees suddenly drop off meetings citing these excuses, especially when you ask a challenging question. These excuses irritate you, even as a colleague. Imagine the plight of customers dealing with such employees remotely. These excuses are acceptable when government mandated everyone to work from home due to COVID lockdowns. But these excuses become irritating when you have a solid infrastructure in office and you are not ready to work from office. Secondly, Madam Speaker, high distractions at home. Many members of the family do not know to respect your office hours. A couple of my friends moved to co-working spaces to avoid the nudge from their family members to buy milk sachet or coriander leaves from the street vendors, which distracted them from their work. Imagine debugging a critical issue with your customer or designing an important module and suddenly a family member interrupts you to buy something from the street vendor. How productive you can be from your home. Now, some of you may challenge. We delivered high productivity during last 2 years and proved to the world that we can be productive from home. Well, during the last 2 years, no parks, shoppings, mall centers, theaters, schools, and other recreational facilities were functional. But now, all of them are functional, and they add to the distractions. For example, an employee may go out to drop or pick up their kids in school when they work from home. You did not have to do this in the last 2 years, as schools were also delivering online classes, but now physical classes have been resumed. Such tasks add up to the list of distractions at home. Thirdly, it is very hard to sustain the productivity expectations from home. While the IT workforce proved to the world that remote work is possible, it is not really sustainable in the long run. I know of several IT employees who complain of stress, eye issues, fatigue, and strained relationships at home because of unrealistic expectations from office. During the last 2 years, we achieved peak productivity by making a lot of sacrifices on the personal front. In the last 2 years, you could not have told your boss, in the evening, I will have to attend a wedding reception and so I cannot take the call. First of all, there were not many functions or gatherings. Second of all, we want to avoid crowds to stay safe. All of us were mostly logged inside our homes and our onshore counterparts took us for granted while scheduling meetings at arbitrary times. We accommodated those unrealistic requests to show that we are flexible and productive. But that model is not sustainable when we are working from home in the long run. Not only that, all of us would agree that collaboration brings the best ideas from the teams, and it is easy to do brainstorming, whiteboarding, and get people's reaction feedback instantly when you are having meetings in person versus over Zoom calls. Moreover, in the past, I have seen employees relocating to corporate headquarters to get into the radar of senior executives. For example, you may occasionally bump into the CEO at the cafeteria or near the water cooler when you are in the office. Even a 2 minutes conversation with the CEO can be life-changing in your career. You are devoid of such opportunities when you work from home. Also, as a manager who is juggling multiple priorities every day, it is easy to assign a critical or emergency work to someone sitting right across your cubicle, then trying to get hold of someone who is remotely working from home. Imagine the war rooms that we used to have in our workplace, where employees get locked into a room and they would not leave office until the works get done. It is hard to lock people in Zoom meetings or Google meetings. They can silently vanish saying that there was a power cut in their house. Incidents like this would create a negative bias on remote employees, which would impact their career growth and perks at workplace. Also, if you are someone who is quiet in Zoom meetings and feels shy to interact with others online, it may have a negative impact on your performance and career growth. Moreover, I know of IT employees who have already started their side businesses. You may be shocked to hear this, but it's true. An engineer working in a famous multinational automobile company is running his own automobile garage on the side. A number of youngsters with UI skills are running web development businesses on the side. Some folks are overseeing their dad's or uncle's businesses while working remotely. How would you know if an employee is just working for one company or he is simultaneously working for multiple firms? It is hard to track with this bill. This creates legal...
Member, you have 2 more minutes of speaking time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This creates legal, ethical challenges for companies as well as for the employees. Marissa Mayer, CEO of Yahoo, banned work from home for Yahoo employees several years ago when she discovered that many remote employees were not productive and some of them were running their own businesses, with people not turning on their videos during Zoom meetings. It is easy to run a stationery shop on the side and attend office meeting in the parallel. We support people working from home, but not in every sector. We, the National Labour Party, support this policy, but not this particular bill. Our party stands both with the workers and the employers. Thank you.
Member Linares.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Firstly, can I remind all members from across the House that all these issues that they have highlighted, we have inherited from them. Do they not have a sense of responsibility? Have they just miraculously had an epiphany after 3 years in opposition? We were voted by the electorate, and it seems like the opposition still cannot accept that. Secondly, let me also remind the opposition to do their research. 99.5% of our citizens are literate, so their statement that there is no real investment in education is unsupported. Our education system provides free...
I request that the honourable member across makes way for a statement.
Absolutely not, no. Our education system provides free, high-quality education for all students up to the age of 18. This ensures that all students from all backgrounds receive equal opportunities when it comes to education. Our scholarships towards STEM subjects at a tertiary level of education ensures that we have citizens who acquire the correct qualification to carry our economy, and most importantly, to develop the infrastructure needed to make remote working a reality. It seems like my colleagues across the House failed to see the benefits of this bill for education and how it will increase accessibility to all young people of our great republic. The opposition reject this bill and claim they are a party for the working class, but this could not be further from the truth. They are a party that doesn't seem to understand the struggles of disabled students in accessing education, the struggles of living far away from school or university, or the struggles of trying to balance higher education with the demands of everyday working life. The opposition have ignored these people for the past 15 years whilst they were in government, but this will be no more. Many of our citizens live in rural areas of our islands and have been cut off from our quality higher education situated on our bigger islands. With remote learning, they have the option to receive the higher education they desire without having to travel long distances to their place of study. Some of my young constituents with disabilities find travelling and attending their place of study exhausting due to all the obstacles they face on a daily basis. They tell me that distance learning would enhance their learning experience because they can receive their qualifications from the comfort of their home, surrounded by everything they need to get through the day. The opposition were in government for 15 years. And did they ensure that all young people, especially those living with disabilities, have access to a high-quality education? No. Did they do anything to tackle the isolation of citizens from rural areas in our islands? No. But we are tackling these issues. We are hearing a lot of words from the members across the House, but what have they done for all these vulnerable people? This bill provides for all these people and more. It ensures that students with disabilities can access higher education by remote learning. It ensures that students from rural areas can also access higher education by remote.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a point of order under 29.1 on relevancy. The bill is not about remote learning, it's about remote work. So if the member could return to the topic of discussion in a more expedient manner. Thank you.
I believe the member has been able to connect her point on remote learning to remote work, so overruled.
So this bill provides for all these people and more, and it ensures that students with disabilities can access higher education by remote learning, which is connected to remote working, by the way. It ensures that students from rural areas can also access higher education by remote learning, and it gives students flexible learning opportunities so they can fulfill the work-life balance that we all aim to achieve. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, this bill is the first step into the 21st century. Under the previous government, we were living in the 18th century with no real investment. Yes, and I'm reminding you of that.
Proceed.
With no real investment into developing internet connection infrastructure, in rejecting this bill, they want to remain in the past. Let me remind the members across the House that we are living in the 21st century, and distance learning is becoming more and more apparent across the globe. According to the National Centre for Education Statistics, in 2020, 75% of all undergraduate students were enrolled in at least one distance education course. We want to ensure that we do not stay behind from the rest of the world. This bill allows for flexible learning opportunities for all students, and it brings the Republic of Kyrie and Shakonia into the 21st century. For all these reasons and the clear benefits towards education, I urge every member of this House to support this bill to ensure we expand the opportunities for all students. And for this reason, I commend this bill to the House.
Attorney General.
Yes, I have a concern that the Chief Whip of the Opposition interrupted without grounds. According to the Standing Orders 28.1, a member may only interrupt by rising on a point of order or to elucidate where the member gives way. Our member did not give way.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney General. As we proceed with our deliberations on this bill, members are asked to be cognizant of the fact that when you do stand, you have to stand on a point of order, which you must identify at the beginning, so that we will proceed with due respect and tolerance to our colleagues in the House. Yeah? Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m.
Members, before I put the question on the adjournment, all members are reminded that any amendments must be submitted by 10 a.m. on Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. Honourable members, the question is that this House do now adjourn to Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022. Excuse me. This House now stands adjourned to Wednesday, November 23rd, 2022 at 1:30 p.m.